Welcome back. Well, over the weekend, Peter Dutton pledged to bring down the foreign student numbers at our universities to around 80,000. He says this will free up housing, especially rentals, and it's all part of his rejection of Labor's Big Australia plans. Joining me now, One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby, back with us every Monday night now that daylight savings are finally over. Our good friend Radio 4BC Drive host, Gary Hardgrave. Gents, welcome. Well, Gary, put your old hat on as a minister in the Howard government for multiculturalism. I mean, if you want to deal with Big Australia, if you want to deal with the overall immigration caps, you've got to deal with foreign students. They are a massive revenue driver for the universities. They don't care about what's happening to the country. They just want the money in the door. But I think this is a good move. What do you think?
Look, it is, Peter, because you see students have to live somewhere. I've been out in Caboolture in the middle of the Longman electorate all afternoon, and people here are really worried about things like cost of living, the infrastructure that are needed to back where people want to live. And so we've got all these pressures that are in the economy right now. Yeah, the university sector, but they were getting, what, $600 million out of the USAID the other week, we heard. So, I mean, there's a lot of money flowing through this, and the whole cost structures in the university space are geared the wrong way. It's all about paying vice-chancellors $1 million salaries and the deputy vice-chancellors big salaries. And this whole thing is really, frankly, it's an immigration Ponzi scheme. It's not in Australia's interest to have too many people taking up accommodation Australians should have. Now, I'm all for students, don't get me wrong, because it actually builds an affiliation and a love of this country for people from other countries. But we've got to have a rest, we've got to have a break, we've got to stop this. Peter Dutton's onto something.
Yeah, we
He's
do. We need a pause. Yeah, and I might add too, if you're an Australian English-speaking uni student and you're dealing with a whole lot of foreign nationals and you're in group projects where you've basically got to carry them all the way through their degrees because they're paying big money, they're sort of not allowed to fail, it also gets you down. It's not the university experience some of us had all those years ago. Hey, now, this is your mob, James Ashby. You're going to be the hot seat here. A prominent Teal candidate backed by Climate 200 has been busted having a meeting with your mob. We're told it's about brokering some sort of preference deal. It was in the papers today. This is in the seat of Flinders. This is just outside Melbourne, down on the Mornington Peninsula. Strange bedfellows. What can you tell us, James Ashby?
It is very strange, Peter, and every single one of our candidates understand that we are putting Labor, the Teals and the Greens dead last. It doesn't matter which seat it is, doesn't matter whether it's Flinders or any other. They're all going last, and we've made that very clear to candidates. What we have said to candidates, however, is we really would like a clean contest at this election. I am sick to death. Every election, we always hear of punch-ons or people stealing core flutes, Monique. We don't want that. We've said that to every one of our candidates. We would rather our candidates have a cordial relationship with people. Look, I probably wouldn't have suggested that they go and have a meeting and a cup of coffee, but I am happy for them to have a cordial relationship on polling booths because no one wants to see the arguments when it comes to, all these candidates. When you approach somebody, the last thing you want are hecklers and people on the sideline having blues. So I'd rather people get along. It's been made very clear One Nation are putting Labor, the Teals and Greens last on every one of our how to vote cards.
This is why we love you on the show. This is why you should be in the parliament, because you get a question and you actually bloody answer it, and not enough people do. James Ashby, thank you for being so frank. Hey, let's go to the University of Queensland, up your way if I can, Gary. A lecturer has been caught berating first-year law students for protesting her inclusion of so-called Indigenous legal perspectives. She went so far as to warn students that she, quote, remembered their faces and that they should watch out if they wanted to do well in their law degree. Now, meanwhile, down in Victoria, the Victorian Bar has also been accused of a bit of a pylon, allegedly, after a female member of the bar criticised, as she should, the overuse of acknowledgements of country. I mean, we've got to call this stuff out, Gary.
Well, we have to, and everyday Australians want us to. Peter, the reality is this sort of belligerent activity, this approach, the way in which Australians who want to get on with each other are being dealt with this way by academic elites, it has got to stop. And everyday Australians are sick of it. The trouble is, why the silence from the Australian government, the Albanese government? Why are they not actually understanding what everyday Australians want? You rightly said, And people out here in Caboolture were telling me the same thing today. You know, the whole elitist approach when it comes to housing batteries. These are people who are not able to afford $9,000 and $10,000 at will. And by the way, it's probably a lot more than that. And the same thing with these academics. They're not representing what the great group of Australian people believe, and that is we all want to get on with each other, but we don't need to actually be dealt with in this sort of abusive and belligerent and threatening way. It has to stop, Peter, and I think it will if people actually tell the government very loudly on May 3.
Rightio, Airbus elbow. I think we now got Boeing, and we've got the news out today that his global emissions are adding up. He's jetted to 10 countries over 55 days at a whopping cost of $260,000 to Australian taxpayers. James, I tell you what, we've got pensioners in this country who can't afford their power bills, that go to bed because they can't turn the heater on or can't afford to turn the heater on, and this bloke spends up like that.
Wow.
Yeah, can we just reiterate that? Less than 2 months, this bloke spent $260,000 on his own flights. And then, as you know, Peter, there's always chaperones that go with them, advisors and a string of other half-wits that Chris Bowen's hired. So they've tramped around the country and the globe with him, and they're all environmental meetings. In other words, he's gone over there to help sign us up to greater costs to everyday households. So, look, no wonder we're sitting at $1 trillion. What happened to the days of being able to do things via Skype in the 2 or 3 years we had lockdowns during COVID? We should go back to those days. We've got an almighty big debt, and here he is racking up over $250,000 in 55 days worth of flights. Outrageous spending.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, 20 seconds to the top of the show, to the top of the hour here. Gary Hardgraves, what do you want to see from your mate Peter Dutton tomorrow night?
I'd like to hear, get out of net zero, get rid of Paris, actually recommit to coal and get cheap electricity back into the grid. That's what we need. We need clear, concise and real action. That's what we need. That's the action we need right now.
There you go. That's the plan, Peter Dutton, there from your mate Gary Hardgraves. Gents, thank you.